Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident fanalist, as always, Ryan Schlipp. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_daddy. All right, so today we are going through the Sunday slate of games. I think it's going to take the whole time. If not, we'll throw in a little extra something. But bottom line, if that's not what you're here for, then I will catch you tomorrow, I guess. But we're going to take a look at Sunday's slate of games. Obviously, a lot of these, a lot might be an exaggeration, but to some degree or another, a lot of these games will pertain to the Green Bay Packers for pretty obvious reasons most of the time. We'll touch on that as it happens. And I will give you, as best as I can, for those that are interested or find any value in it, my thoughts as far as the actual betting as well. Before we get there, though, a couple updates. Jayden Reed, nothing new compared to what we've already talked about, but the expectation, I believe he's undergone surgery now, but the expectation, 6 to 8 weeks, hoping to get back around November. Also, Brenton Cox Jr. was placed on IR. Apparently, he's dealing with a groin injury. Let's call it what it is. That became significantly less detrimental with the addition of Micah Parsons. With that said, I like Brenton Cox a lot. I think he's shown a lot, and I look forward to him getting back and being a contributor to this team in this pass rush. But I think that's about it. As far as I know, they have not officially moved Jayden Reed to IR. I think that's still coming, and with that will presumably be, I'm guessing, the elevation of Mecole Hardman. We'll see how that all works itself out. But as of right now, I don't believe that has taken place. I believe that's also the case for Brenton Cox. I know there were game day elevations and whatnot, but provides a really good opportunity for a couple guys that I think are extremely deserving. You never know how this is actually going to go in terms of who's going to be elevated or whatever, but assuming it's an edge rusher from the practice squad, there's two guys to keep an eye on. There's only two guys there, but two guys to think about. Aaron Mosby, who, like Brenton Cox, I thought was fantastic last year. He was really impressive, and I'd be excited if he came back and was able to contribute with the guys that we have. The other is Deslin Alexander, kind of a lesser-known commodity as far as actually playing with the Green Bay Packers and whatnot, but he was one of the, I guess we'll call it one of the many off-season darlings that was really impressing a lot of people. But again, we'll see how that goes. But all right, let's go ahead and jump into this. Obviously, some games are going to be more interesting than others, but oh my good Lord, I hate that. You probably didn't hear that good. We'll start off with we'll just go in order of how they have it here. Cleveland Browns, Baltimore Ravens. This one has, I believe, the largest spread, which would mean that it's expected to be the biggest blowout by a pretty wide margin, actually. The Baltimore Ravens are 12-point favorites, where I'm looking right now. Total is sitting at 45. Obviously, this is a very big. Trying to hype this up bigger than it is. It's an AFC North battle. And the relevance to the Green Bay Packers, from my perspective, is twofold. One is pretty obvious. We play Cleveland next week. It's going to be important to keep an eye on them. The other is, I guess there's three things, kind of. We also play the Baltimore Ravens. It's later in the year, December 27th, I think. But I also just kind of want to track the Packers with the top of the class. This is kind of where my mindset, not just being solely focused on the NFC North, it's, are we the best team in football? It's less relevant because it's only going to matter if Baltimore makes it to the Super Bowl and we make it to the Super Bowl, but it's still an important question. You don't like being a very good team with a chance, and then you watch a team like Baltimore and just think, yeah, but we're not that good. Baltimore is going to be without Patrick Ricard as well as tight end Isaiah Likely. There are questions about Jack Conklin for Cleveland, which is a big problem because, wait for it, Cleveland's offensive line apparently is kind of one of the biggest shaky points for them. Yeah, go ahead and get excited about that. I think Buffalo probably demonstrated some ways to attack the Baltimore Ravens. Unfortunately, I don't think Cleveland has any ability to do that. Their offensive line is not going to be able to hold up, to be able to attack down the field. And so, on one side you got Lamar, you got Henry, you got everybody. On the other side, you have a bad offensive line, potentially down one of your offensive linemen with real rough quarterback situation. So it's always difficult looking at division rivals. They tend to be closer than expected. That being said, I am going to place a bet on the Ravens spread at -12, meaning I think they're going to win by more than that. I'm going to cut my bet in half just because it's a divisional thing and it's early in the season and all that, but I'm still going to bet it and see how it turns out. Jacksonville, Jaguars, Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals, AFC North, will be playing them, so it's worth keeping an eye on. And I suppose if you're going to have a rooting interest, from my perspective, you're rooting for the Jaguars. A very good Bengals team is nothing but a threat. But right now, the Bengals are just 3.5-point favorites against the Jaguars, total sitting at 49. And it's kind of an interesting game because you come into this saying, well, Cincinnati, they're, although they're always a question mark, Burrow and all that, that's scary. And the Jaguars, they're bad. Except for the part where the Jaguars, despite playing a pretty easy opponent, won last week, are 1-0, and looked quite good doing it. In Cincinnati, while being 1-0, narrowly beat the Cleveland Browns by just 1 point, and already there's a bunch of questions about them. Cincinnati, as always, has questions about their offensive line. I look forward to that when we see them. Last year, they allowed a 33.1% pressure rate, which ranked 27th in the NFL. And they're going to end up seeing Josh Hines-Allen, who had a 90 PFF grade, 90 pass rush grade, 32.1% win rate in week 1. So he went friggin' crazy. So, if Jacksonville has actually improved their run defense, which again is hard to tell because they had a super easy opponent in week 1, but if they can stop the run, force them into passing situations, and stress their offensive line, there's certainly opportunities there. And hilariously, the Cincinnati Bengals are at home. However, it is supposed to be 89 degrees. There is a bit of a heat wave ripping through here. We'll see if that actually ends up holding up. But there's a situation where the heat wave ends up actually benefiting Jacksonville, who are much more conditioned for the 90-degree heat than a team like the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't know what it's been, but I'm assuming Cincinnati's temperature has been pretty close to here, and it's been cooling off a little bit. With that said, and I forgot to give you my score prediction for the last game. I don't remember what it was, but I've got the Bengals beating pretty handily the Jacksonville Jaguars 31-20. That's obviously a much bigger spread than 3.5. So I'm going to go ahead and put my money on the Bengals not only winning, but covering that spread. Dallas Cowboys, New York Giants. Dallas, they are fun to make fun of. No doubt about it. There's a bit of a laughing stock every time their owner opens their mouth. They seem pretty stupid. However, they did put up a decent fight against the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. And so I have to assume, at least until proven otherwise, that they are a playoff caliber team. Therefore, I'll be rooting for the Giants for whatever that's worth. It's kind of like me saying I'm going to root for the Bears this week. Maybe, I don't know. Knowing full well they're going to get their teeth kicked in. But it's another rivalry game. Surprising how many there are in the first 2 weeks. It's like they're just loading them up. Beginning of the season, end of the season. Maybe they're doing that on purpose. I don't know. The line sitting at -6.5, or excuse me, -6. I'm looking at the wrong game in favor of Dallas. 44.5 is the total. Dallas Cowboys looking to bounce back. Actually, both teams technically are, but, I mean, who cares what the Giants are doing? Dallas lost Micah Parsons, obviously, which is a big kick in the gut. To make matters worse, the Giants' star tackle Andrew Thomas is listed as doubtful in this game. That's just going to make things significantly worse, although they don't have Micah Parsons anymore, so that's great. There's no sense in necessarily dragging it out. I'm not going to bet it just because I don't have a lot of data on Dallas right now. I know a lot of what I'm using is last year's information, which was based largely on Cooper Rush and Trey Lance and Brian Anger. Yeah, their puncher threw 2 passes, all right? Leave me alone. But just hoping for a fluke that the Giants can beat Dallas at home. I really find that hard to believe. Washington steamrolled the Giants. We steamrolled them. Dallas narrowly lost to Philly. I mean, it is what it is. Chicago and Detroit is sitting at -6.5 in favor of the Detroit Lions, which I guess is pretty large. I was going to say it should be more. I have a feeling, I could be wrong, but I have a feeling if this was November of last year, this would be a little bit more than 6.5. But with Detroit kind of being up in the air a little bit, might be scaring some people away just until they can kind of figure some things out. We don't know. We don't know anything. We don't know how bad the Bears are because we don't know how good Minnesota is. We don't know how bad Detroit is because we don't know how good Green Bay is. We don't know much. I tend to believe that this year is pretty close to last year. And what we saw with Chicago and Minnesota, the reason that was close, well, first of all, Chicago and Minnesota was close last year also. But some growing pains with a new quarterback. And that pretty much answers all the questions you need to know, aside from Green Bay taking a pretty massive step. Call it biased if you want. I think it makes the most sense. But because I believe that, I'm going to have to root once again for the Chicago Bears. And by root, I mean when I close my eyes and open them, I hope Chicago has a W in the win column and Detroit goes to 0-2, more so than I'd like the alternative. However, I will be laughing and mocking the Chicago Bears every step of the way. It's also obviously going to be a pretty cool matchup because Ben Johnson will be going back to Detroit. And I have a feeling he will be not treated very well. Amon-Ra St. Brown saying that they're going to boo him when he comes back, which I appreciate. I like that. I suppose the potential benefit for Ben Johnson is that he's probably been beating up on this defense for a long time. He knows Detroit very, very well. He also knows Detroit's off. I mean, it's funny because you have the offense in Detroit is trying to copy Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson, in one sense, actually knows the Lions' offense better than the Lions do. And similarly with the Detroit Lions' defense, Ben Johnson has played against them, worked with them, scheme. I mean, he knows that defense inside and out as well. And so again, you're in that situation where the more you deviate, the better. But also, the whole point of hiring from within and whatnot is continuity. In other words, we want to keep things the same. The same is going to screw you over. Moving further away is probably not going to be great, because if we were going to do that, we should have just hired somebody else. That part is actually relatively interesting. You could say, well, they also know Ben Johnson. Maybe somewhat. But number one, again, you've got sort of the second-in-line defensive coordinator. Even if he has an idea of what their offense does and whatnot, is he going to be up to snuff? Is he on the same level as Ben Johnson? I don't think so. So it's not going to matter because you're not going to outsmart the guy probably. Also, it's a Chicago Bears variant of what Ben Johnson does, theoretically. So whereas Detroit is going to be copy-paste, Chicago shouldn't be. So we'll see. I still don't really see any way. I mean, all that drama aside and brilliant OC and all that nonsense, at the end of the day, Caleb Williams couldn't hit the broadside of a freaking barn. His receivers absolutely hate him. The coach is probably going behind his back already up to the front office saying, you better not fire me because of this guy. If this doesn't work, I want to stay here and be able to handpick my own quarterback because this guy's dog crap. If that hasn't happened yet, it will very soon. So, we will see. Once again, divisional game, all that stuff. I'll cut my bet in half. I'm still going to bet on Detroit. Again, a lot of this is based on last year's data. However, last year's data is so compelling. For example, Detroit at home scored 35 points per game last year. Even if they take a step back, give me a freaking break. Do you know what Chicago scored on the road last year? 17 points a game. Stupidity. Absolute stupidity. But I've got the score 30-20 Detroit. Total sitting right at 50. I'll leave that alone, but I am going to bet on Detroit. Patriots-Dolphins, completely irrelevant to us. AFC, neither. I don't think either are playoff teams. We'll see. The Dolphins, I would have said maybe, but they are in full collapse mode, seemingly. And the Patriots, I mean, again, maybe with their team coming together or something. I don't know, but I don't think so. But Miami just 2-point favorites, which I think is actually down from last I saw. I thought it was 3, but the confidence in Miami is plummeting. 43 is the total. AFC East rivals. Miami got absolutely rocked by the Colts of all teams. Patriots had the lowest overall PFF grade as a team last week. So it's pretty rough. Miami's going to be without Darren Waller with a hip injury, Austin Jackson toe injury, and Jalen Wright with a knee injury being doubtful. New England, Christian Gonzalez, which is a big blow, has a hamstring injury. Keon White is sick, and both of those guys are going to be out. And so it's strangely going to be kind of like, well, Tua was really bad. He had 4 turnover-worthy plays last week. However, especially with Keon White being out, I'm not sure New England has pass rush, so I don't know. Again, nobody cares, but we'll take a break, and I'll give you my score prediction on the other side. All right, New England, Miami, completely up in the air game, but I'll give you my score prediction that I will not be betting on. I've got Miami winning at home 23 to 18.5, call it 19. 23-19 Miami. Next up, Rams, Titans. Rams, understandably, 5.5-point favorites. Rams are of interest to us. They are an NFC rival. Obviously, pretty unfamiliar opponents. The Rams were the highest Week 1 performing team on PFF. They're going to be going up against the Titans, who have a rookie quarterback in Cam Ward. The game will take place in Nashville. It's going to be very, very hot, so that will be one thing that they have working in their favor. Rams have Colby Parkinson, who is doubtful with a shoulder injury. Steve Avila is doubtful with an ankle injury. Tennessee has J.C. Latham with a hip injury and Tavondre Sweat with an ankle injury. Both of them have been ruled out. Not great for the trenches. And ultimately, this should be light work for the Rams. I wish some of these were a little bit more interesting in terms of, we got a rooting interest, but there's really no chance. Love for the Rams to lose, but probably not going to happen. Love for Detroit to go 0-2, probably not going to happen. Dallas, boy, oh boy, with that, it's not going to happen. So it's mismatch central. That said, I do have it a little bit closer, too close to bet, but I've got Tennessee winning the game 21-17, putting the spread at just a little over 4. But again, not touching it. Seattle Seahawks, Pittsburgh Steelers, kind of a horse apiece here. Seattle, if you think they're legitimate, playoff contenders, NFC team, you want to bet against them, that's fine. Pittsburgh, however, we are going to be going up against them, in the not too distant future. Either way, the Steelers are at home. They are 3-point favorites. They did win in a pretty shocking 34-32 victory over the Jets. Shocking for a lot of reasons. Pittsburgh giving up 32 points with what is thought to be a good defense to the Jets, which is thought to be a bad offense, is somewhat confusing. Makes the Jets game against Buffalo a little bit more interesting, at least for a little while. If Buffalo pulls away, we'll have some answers. Seattle, meanwhile, fell to the San Francisco 49ers in a low-scoring battle. Steelers do have 3 starters ruled out: Joey Porter, Deshaun Elliott, and Derek Harmon. Seattle has Devon Witherspoon doubtful. One thing to keep an eye on, Pittsburgh, second highest rate of using 13 personnel. That's right, 13 personnel. That would be 3 tight ends on the field. Seattle's defense traditionally struggles with heavy formations, so that may be something they're going to try to out-physical the Seattle Seahawks. It's also a question of Sam Darnold, who is the new Seattle Seahawks quarterback, who actually looked quite good last week. We'll see if he can continue that. And again, because of how new everything is with Aaron Rodgers, with Darnold and all that, I'm just going to leave it alone. My thoughts will just be off the top of my head, and that I'll say I think Pittsburgh is going to win the game, but that's really all I got. 49ers Saints setting up to be a pretty massive dud. Really just not an interesting game. Again, I would love to root against San Francisco. There's every reason to believe that San Francisco should lose the game, and they're going up against maybe the worst team in the NFL. 49ers are currently 3-point favorites. The reason I say that, I would expect their downfall is that Brock Purdy will not be playing in this game, and instead Mac Jones is going to be playing. This is a massive talent drop-off for the San Francisco 49ers. Beyond that, George Kittle, currently on IR with a hamstring injury. He's out a minimum of 4 games. Juwan Jennings is ruled out with a shoulder injury. So not only are you losing your quarterback, you're losing 2 targets in the passing game. Saints come in much healthier. So I don't really know. The 49ers run a very complex offense. Mac Jones is relatively unfamiliar with this. Are they going to dumb it down? We've got new receivers, new tight end, new quarterback. It's a cluster, and they're on the road in New Orleans. If they fall to the Saints, which is certainly not impossible, that would be a massive blow to the 49ers, who are obviously trying to reassert themselves. They are also a weird team that kind of fluctuates between being garbage and dominant. They're hoping this is one of the dominant years, but losing to the Saints would be to fall on... nobody likes to lose to your easiest game on the schedule, and that's what this would be. So, big time fingers crossed for the Saints to pull off a miracle and just get completely lucky with the way the injuries fell and pull off a win against the 49ers. Jets, Buffalo Bills. Again, it's weird, so I'm just going to leave it alone for now, but I actually am very interested in this game. There is a part of me that is really hoping that Justin Fields blows up for the Jets, that the offensive performance we saw against Pittsburgh was real. And as much as I've been saying I'm rooting for Buffalo and all that, I'm kind of getting tired of it. It's kind of getting that way with Baltimore, too. I like both of those teams. They're AFC teams. They're fun to watch, so I can kind of enjoy them without having to worry about any repercussions, usually, except for when we play them, which is rare. But I don't know. Maybe Buffalo's had their moment. Maybe the Jets should step up a little bit. Plus, it would be funny for a million reasons. They couldn't do it with Aaron Rodgers. They're going to do it with Justin Fields. And the Bears couldn't do it with Justin Fields. It's just a double whammy of hilarious. The Bills are 6-point favorites, understandably so. I think the assumption is the Jets are still a bad, and if nothing else, dysfunctional team, whereas the Bills are an established, successful, talented team. But the Jets are under new management, at least as far as, the owner is obviously still there, but they're being run by new coach GM. Who knows, man? Who knows? But I'll be interested in that game. Like I said, at least for 5 minutes until I look up and the score is 21-3, and then I'll say never mind. Finally, moving on to the 3 o'clock games, we got the Arizona Cardinals and the Carolina Panthers. I don't believe the Carolina Panthers are a legitimate football team. Arizona, on the other hand, possibly. And so I will be uselessly rooting for the Carolina Panthers, who are 7-point underdogs in the game. Hilariously, the Arizona Cardinals game last week was against the Saints, and it was relatively close. It was a 7-point game. It was 20-13. Carolina, on the flip side, as I mentioned when I talked about Jacksonville, lost 26-10. Absolute beating. As much as I wanted to jump on the Bryce Young hype train and be like, oh, he actually looks like he's maybe taking a half a step here. Not a great start. Not sure anyone's been officially ruled completely out. There's a few people that are questionable. If you're looking for a prop bet angle, Arizona likes to play with their tight ends, particularly Trey McBride. Carolina really seems to struggle quite a bit with tight ends. Just one of the many issues they're probably going to have in this game. Score prediction. It feels weird because I don't know why I hate the Arizona Cardinals so much. I just genuinely, every year we come back and I'm like, I don't like them. They're not good. Kyler's terrible. Score prediction is pretty wild. I have Arizona winning, understandably, 31-17. And I say understandably for a couple reasons. Number one, Arizona at home is actually quite good. So on the road, Arizona was only scoring 20 points. At home, 27. This is last year, obviously, but there you go. Defensively, on the road, they were giving up 26 points a game. At home, 19. Huge difference home and away, and Arizona is home. Carolina, Really not that big of a difference home or away, although it is worse away. But just a terrible football team, scoring 19 points per game on the road, giving up 33 points per game on the road. So again, I've got it 31-17 Arizona. Denver Broncos, Indianapolis Colts. Pretty close game here, which is part of the reason I'm just not touching it. I don't know what the heck is going on here. Denver just 1-point favorites on the road. I believe that has even closed that gap, I mean. The Colts absolutely stomping out Miami has got me at least, it's probably a fluke, but I'm going to be on pause until we figure out what the heck is going on. Denver also 1-0, having beat Tennessee, but Tennessee's bad, and it was an 8-point win, 20-12. The defense is quite good, but not overly impressive. It's already raising questions about Bo Nix and his development, especially under pressure. Denver's going to be without Nate Adkins with an ankle injury and Dre Greenlaw with a quad injury. Indy is going to be without Charvarius Ward and Jalen Jones. The game doesn't matter. I'm not going to be betting it. It is worth noting, I suppose, that we will be playing Denver week 15. So them being maybe worse than we thought could be good, you know? I say worse than was projected would be a good thing. So I suppose for that reason, rooting for the Colts would be worthwhile endeavor. But I'm just, I don't know, leaving that alone. One of the better marquee games of the week, Philadelphia Eagles, Kansas City Chiefs. It's only horrible because I can't decide what I want to happen here, but either way, something really good is going to happen. The Eagles are just 1-point favorites on the road against the Kansas City Chiefs. Either the Chiefs lose and fall to 0-2, which is beautiful, or Philly loses, putting us ahead of them in the NFC and clearly establishing us. Might not move the needle a massive amount, but for some that are kind of on the fence about where the Packers stand, it's going to help push more and more people and a general belief that the Packers are probably the top team in the NFC. So however that falls, I think I'm okay with it. Obviously, this is the Super Bowl rematch. Chiefs, I hate to keep saying I've got questions about the Chiefs because I say it every year and it just doesn't really amount to anything. They keep doing what they do. But I do think their tight end is falling off, and they are going to be without Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice. Their options are extremely limited. Xavier Worthy listed as doubtful with a shoulder injury. Rashee Rice unavailable due to suspension. Hollywood Brown will be their primary receiving threat. Yikes. Philadelphia enters significantly healthier with only Dallas Goedert, Will Shipley, and Cameron Williams ruled out. It's a lot of names, but their core identity remains intact. Score prediction for the game. The big one. Philadelphia Eagles once again win the game in a close contest, 25-23. Got the official spread prediction at 2.7. So way too close to call or to bet. It's not a big enough gap between the 1 point and the 2.7. They've got the total at 47. I've got it 47.8, so I'm not touching that either. We shall see how she goes. And then finally, the Sunday night main event, Minnesota Vikings, Atlanta Falcons. Another one I don't really want to touch because there's too much unknown. I would even throw Penix in the mix. We know a little bit about Penix, but I kind of want to see how that settles in year two. J.J. McCarthy, we know nothing about. Minnesota at home in this game. They are 3.5-point favorites. I do think Minnesota is going to win. Maybe that's just conditioning because they always find ways to win. Certainly wasn't very inspiring this past week, depending on how you look at it. On one hand, they couldn't get anything going against, I think the worst part is I don't think Chicago's expected to have a very good defense, and they kind of just ran all over Minnesota's offense, at least at first. And Minnesota eventually picked it up. So I'm kind of torn between, they really started to figure it out, really got into a rhythm. And so you got this Minnesota defense that's supposed to be good, and this offense that kind of figured it out and has a quarterback that I thought looked pretty good, was extremely accurate, even if he is just a pocket guy. The flip side is their offense looks slow and lethargic and terrible against a terrible Chicago defense. They finally overcame it, but not in any kind of spectacular way. That's just what you're supposed to do against them. And then the real question is the defense. I mean, let's be completely honest about Minnesota's defense against Chicago. How much of that game was Minnesota stopping Chicago as opposed to Chicago stopping Chicago? If Caleb Williams just completes the passes, if Caleb Williams just has any amount of accuracy, if he just throws to the open guy accurately, I'm pretty sure Chicago wins that game. So it's week 1. Anything could happen. Again, I'm going to lean toward Minnesota winning, but this is probably one of the first ones where you look at and go, I don't actually know who's better. Obviously, we're rooting for Atlanta, but I don't know. I don't like that it's in Minnesota. That one pushes it a little bit heavier. I kind of said the same thing about Minnesota-Chicago, where I thought Minnesota would win, but the Chicago thing made me a little uneasy. Minnesota's just a tough place to play. It's very loud. It's very intimidating. It's always just jam-packed full of Vikings fans, and the Vikings seem to play very well. In fact, again, I'm not going to use these numbers to figure out the whole betting thing because I'm going to stay away from this particular game, but just looking at last year, they scored 21 points per game, 29 points per game at home. They're also 3 points better defensively when at home. So Atlanta was pretty much the same team home and away, a little bit better at home, but not anything massive, not to the extent that Minnesota is. But yeah, I'm gonna lean Minnesota and hope for the upset. But I'll tell you what, I always underestimate how long this takes and how mentally draining this is. I know it doesn't seem like it. I've just been talking to you for about 30 minutes. This has been hours of digging stuff up, working the math, pulling up the DVOA, all these different things. I'm freaking fried right now. And there's nothing I want more than to be done and to just go chill. I still have Packernet After Dark to do, actually. So I'm actually going to leave it at that. And then as far as laughing at the enemy, I guess you're just going to have to call me a liar, unless I can sneak in a little bonus thing tomorrow morning. And unfortunately, either Detroit or Chicago, I'm not really going to be able to laugh at. But there's going to be plenty of laughing at the enemy coming up. You guys have a good rest of your day, night, whatever. I'll talk to you later. Have a good one. Bye-bye.